and sports fans get all your Gator talk, news, analysis, and opinions on the PodUp with Matthews in the Morning podcast. Find us on your favorite podcast platform or watch us on Facebook Live between 8 a.m. and 9 a.m. every weekday. PodUp, because we are Gator fans. So say it's great to be a Florida Gator.
Good morning and welcome to a Monday edition of PodUp with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Hope everyone had a great weekend, had some sports to watch, baseball, basketball, and obviously PGA Tour. But we're going to go to the Titan MR hotline. We got a good show lined up for you first. We're going to have Andy Staples from The Athletic join us, former Gator. And then in the second half of the show, we're going to have a former offensive lineman for the Gators, Cooper Carlisle. So we're going to go straight to the Titan MR hotline, and we're joined by Andy Staples. Good morning, Andy. How are you?
Doing good, Shane. How are you doing?
Doing great, man. Well, a lot of stuff has happened here recently. Let's get right into it. The SEC's coming out with a 10 games schedule, all conference games. Give me Andy Staples' thoughts on that.
Well, I mean, this is sort of where everybody's going. They're all going to the conference only, or at least mostly conference only schedule. You saw the ACC do conference plus one, but we'll see. We'll see if that survives. Not that the SEC's only doing conference games, so you don't have Florida State, you don't have South Carolina Clemson, you don't have Georgia Tech, don't have Kentucky Louisville. So, maybe the ACC changes theirs, but I think this is just everybody wanted to control all the different variables. Everybody wanted flexibility in their schedules. And for the SEC, do you have a week where you could put games? And that's where they wanted to have a week between the regular season and the championship game where if something got canceled or multiple games got canceled, they could put them there. And that's what they did with that December 12th week. Now, obviously, none of this may happen. We don't know if they're going to be able to play. You look at Major League Baseball, they're having issues with positive tests. We haven't seen the NFL play yet. I think the reason the SEC decided on starting the season September 26th is they want to see the NFL try to play. Because if the NFL can pull it off, then maybe college football can pull it off because they're in similar boats. There's not a bubble for the players. They're going home, and then they're also having to travel to road games. So it's a similar situation between the NFL and college football. So the SEC will get a good look at how practice works when the NFL does that, and NFL training camps have already started. And then they'll get 2 weeks of games where, if the NFL can do it, great. Then there's a good chance you're going to be able to pull it off in college football too. But if after the first week of the NFL, you got to knock out like half the teams, well, maybe it's not going to work. So I think the SEC was adamant about having that, let the NFL players be the guinea pigs and not your own players that aren't pros and that sort of thing. And I think, you saw the Pac-12 do the same. 10 has not released its schedule yet. You may see the same thing with them. The Big 12 still has games scheduled on August 29th. We'll see if that happens.
When you look at the SEC, obviously there's been a lot of talk with Florida adding Alabama and Texas A&M. Do you think that's what's going to happen, or how are they going to go about doing that?
I don't know. A lot of people think they'll just go to the next rotation and just put those two teams in there. I don't know that that's necessarily what they're going to do. If it were me deciding, I would do it based on what are the matchups people want to see. What is going to get you the most bang for your buck from a TV perspective? Because remember, you got to go talk to the TV networks about how much they're going to give you for this season, because they were expecting a 12-game regular season with a championship. You're not giving them that. So I would imagine that this entire season, in terms of how much CBS and ESPN are willing to pay, is up for negotiation. So I would try to give them the games that they would want the most. So what would that be? So I would want to add an LSU-Georgia game because Georgia's already playing Auburn and Alabama, but they're not playing LSU. I would add a Florida-Alabama game, and I would add a Florida-Auburn game because Florida's already playing LSU, but not playing the other two. I would add a Tennessee-Texas A&M game. Whatever looks like a great TV matchup is what I would add. And so for Florida, that would probably mean your schedule gets a lot harder because you're like you said, A&M, Alabama. I said A&M, Auburn, or I said Alabama, Auburn. Either one of those is a pretty tough draw. So, it's just a matter of, are they going to do it based on ratings, or are they going to do it based on fairness? Because they're going to do it based on fairness, then maybe you're going to get Alabama and Mississippi State, or Texas A&M and Mississippi State, instead of what we said. Because what we said is pretty hard.
Yeah. We're speaking with Andy Staples. You can follow him on Twitter at Andy_Staples. Check him out at The Athletic. Also on the Andy Staples Show. Andy, we may be jumping the gun here, but let's say we do have a chance to play college football this year. Have you heard the thoughts of how many fans are going to be able to attend, or fans at all?
I think that depends on where you are. In Texas, they still say 50% of capacity. I've heard with Florida it could be 20% capacity. At this point, I'd be shocked if there are any fans when it starts. I think it's really going to depend on the municipality that you're in. I think certain states are going to be absolutely zero, no fans, nada. I think down here there's a chance you could have some, but I don't think it's going to be much. I think most of the SEC schools, with the exception of Texas A&M, which has said, their governor said 50%, so they're planning on 50%. I think most SEC schools are planning on something closer to 20% capacity if they can get fans in at all.
I also read somewhere, or heard, and I talked about it on my show a couple of weeks ago, and I want to hear your thoughts on it. Teams, we used to fly in on a Friday, spend the night. Sometimes you go to a movie, whatever hotel you're at, play the game, and then come back Saturday right after the game. Is there a lot of talk now about the teams flying out the day of the game?
It is something that they've talked about. I don't think they've gotten that far down the road. A lot of the practical stuff, I think, is decided as the season gets closer, because they're still trying to figure out some of the broad stroke stuff. Can they get the tests that they need? Can they test frequently enough? That's the stuff they're worrying about right now. As they get closer, if it becomes apparent that they're going to have a season, that is something I think that they're going to talk about. And look, I think with the SEC, everybody charters everywhere. Nobody's flying commercial. You can probably fly in day of the game and be okay. Now, some of those early starts, I don't know if that's going to work, but I think in a primetime game, absolutely. You fly in the morning, and you've got contingencies built in for weather and everything else. So I think you could do it, but something that down the road they're going to have to decide on. But I don't have a problem. I would imagine if the NFL gets going, you're going to see a lot of the flying in a day of the game, and I would think if you're chartering in the SEC, why not? I mean, why risk it?
Talking about the testing, Andy, is the biggest issue that they don't want to go play out of conference games because we don't know the testing procedures of, say, the ACC, or some of these smaller tiered schools obviously don't have the resources to do that. But is that the main reason why they stayed with conference only games?
It's the main reason for not playing against, say, the Sun Belt or Conference USA. The ACC one's a different story. I don't think it was a case of them being worried about the ACC's testing protocol. The ACC schools can afford to do pretty much the same thing the SEC schools can do. I think it was more a case of wanting to have that week because, those games. Now, granted, like Georgia had Virginia scheduled, and there were other early season SEC, ACC matchups, but the ones they were worried about actually keeping were those rivalry games. And it basically came down to, do you want to have that week free in case stuff gets canceled and postponed, or do you want to have games scheduled during that week? And they all decided, with the exception of South Carolina, that they would rather have that week free. And so I think that's what it was. And I think, the ACC schools are not particularly happy about it. I don't blame them, but this is an extreme case of SEC schools ducking ACC schools because, and if you think about it, 3 of those SEC schools would be favored to win if the game was played today. The one that was really adamant about playing was South Carolina, which is the one that would probably lose. So I don't think it has anything to do with competitive concerns. I think it's just more they want to have that week open.
When you look at the broad scene of college football, I've been talking about it. I hate what's going on with, especially for the FCS schools, the mid majors, not getting the payday. How are they going to be able to survive?
Well, it's gonna be tough. I mean, they're gonna have to have a shortfall for a while, and hopefully when they can come back, that they'll be able to resume and get this money. But the thing is, you're not running FCS football programs to get rich. You sort of understand that when you're involved at that level, that there's not a ton of money coming in here. So it is not the same endeavor as working at a Power 5 football program. It's a very different thing. So you've got to understand that something like this could happen, but it doesn't make it any easier to deal with. And hopefully, when they get back to it, maybe the next time the Power a little extra in, because they don't give the FCS schools nearly as much money as they give those Group of 5 schools. So maybe they throw a little extra their way. But I don't know. The other thing about it, Shane, is if they do play and they have this 10-game conference schedule, I'm not sure that bell will be unrung. I think fans are going to say, you know what, this is a way better product than what you've been giving us. And then at that point, then if you're an FCS school or a Group of 5 school, you got to figure out how to deal with not having as many opportunities to play against a Power 5 school, because I'm guessing, SEC fans would look at a 10-game schedule, and if they actually got one, and we'll see if they do, but if they actually got one, they'd be like, wow, this is so awesome. Please don't ever go back to what you did before.
Absolutely. Refresh your vehicle and your brand with a vehicle wrap from WrapSpot. August is your lucky month at WrapSpot. Mention promo code Shane and receive 13% off your vehicle wrap. We're speaking with Andy Staples here on the Titan Tomorrow Hotline. A couple more things for you, Andy. Being a former Gator yourself, a lot of people, we've had you on before. You were a walk-on back on the national championship team in '96. You're a writer. Tell me what you feel about not playing Florida State this year.
Go with it, honestly. I mean, I understand the circumstances that they're dealing with, and I think flexibility is what matters most. And I still think if you look at all the logistical hurdles that there are between now and having a season, it may be something that you don't end up worrying about, because they may not end up playing a full season or playing a season at all, in which case there wouldn't have been a Florida State game in that case. So I don't blame the SEC for doing it the way they did it. I think if I were Scott Strickland, I'd be not thrilled with my fellow ADs and my fellow schools, because now I've got to deal with the political blowback of this. And I think, Greg McGarity at Georgia, probably same thing, and Ray Tanner at South Carolina. But I think everybody's got to figure out their own thing right now, because you got to get as much of a season in as you can from a financial standpoint. And playing cross-conference games is a harder thing to do. So, we'll see what happens, but I don't. Hopefully, this doesn't cause any lingering animosity, and they can just get back to those games, the Florida State game, South Carolina, Clemson, Georgia Tech, all that, when things get back to normal. That's the part. If there's a lingering grudge after this, then that's maybe another issue. But I think people will be understanding.
Yeah. Andy, so the SEC is not supposed to start till September 26th, somewhere around there. They're supposed to start official training camp, August 7th. Are they going to move that date, or are they still set in stone on August 7th starting camp?
They're trying to figure that out. That's one of the things that the coaches were asking the people in charge of the conference late last week, trying to figure out, okay, are we supposed to just start practicing, or would you like us to wait 3 weeks to start practicing? And I think, what they don't want is a situation where you just send the players home and they come back, because, we've talked about the bubble or lack thereof. The closest thing you've got to a bubble is when they're on campus. So I think they would like to keep them there and have a reason to keep them there. So they could have not a spring practice per se, but something like that, where they could install offenses and defenses. And, for Florida, it's probably not as big of a deal, because a lot of the guys have played, and it's a veteran heavy team. But if you're Georgia and you're changing offenses, or if you're Texas A&M, or I'm sorry, if you're, Missouri and have new coaching staff, Arkansas and have new coaching staff, those are the ones that really do need some time to do that stuff. And maybe you can kind of amend the schedule to do it. I would say don't start banging those guys on each other until middle of August. I mean, there's really no need to, or maybe even late August. But could you do some stuff out on the field where you have the whole team and a football? And I realize that the NCAA does allow a little bit of that as you lead up to practice, but maybe a little bit more of that. And maybe you make up for some of what you lost in spring practice. But you really don't need to have those guys pounding on each other. And I don't think most coaches would want that early on. I think they want to wait until you get a little bit closer to when games would actually be played.
Yeah. Last thing for you, Andy. With so much uncertainty going on this year, let's just say we do get a full season in, and majority of the Power 5 schools are doing the 10 conference games. Is this a year to experiment with expanding the playoff and somehow maybe say all champions from the Power 5 get an at-large bid, and then maybe have a couple other schools have a chance to get in? Is this the year to try that?
I would think so, because I think if you pull this season off, and Pac-12's playing conference only, and Big Ten's playing conference only, and SEC's conference only, and the ACC and the Big 12 have a very limited number of non-conference games, how are you supposed to decide which conference is better? Because, it's a 14 playoff. There's 5 Power 5 leagues. So you automatically are eliminating at least one. So how do you know? I mean, it's not really fair to judge off previous year's conference reputations. I mean, the Pac-12 has the reputation it has, but that's based on stuff that happened in the past. It's not based on anything that happened this season. The SEC has its reputation, but not based on what happened this season. So why not try it? And here's the added benefit of that. You've not delivered the same amount of television inventory that you normally would, so you're probably not getting as much money. If you add a round to the playoff, good possibility ESPN's going to say, you know what? We will pay a lot for that. We would like to see that because we know the viewers want that. So you may actually make a little more money on the thing, and you can go back to what you were doing before. But again, I would caution that may be a bell that can't be unrung once you try it. But I just don't see how you pick 4 teams when you don't really have any idea whether a conference is better than another. I like to go back to 2006 on that because, everybody's used to the SEC having the reputation it has now. But I always like to remind everybody that it wasn't always like that. Remember in 2006 when we spent the whole season going, well, Ohio State's clearly the best team in the country, and Michigan's probably the second best team in the country. And if they, whoever wins that game should play for the national title against somebody else. And then they play a classic. I think it was decided by 3 points. And there were a lot of people who were like, well, they're clearly the best 2 teams in the country. Maybe we should have a rematch in a neutral site. And then you get to the actual game where Florida played Ohio State, and Florida just destroyed Ohio State. And nobody saw that coming. Nobody realized. And then you had Jarvis Moss saying, hey, we played 5 teams that were better than them. Well, because we had decided the Big Ten was the best league that year without really any evidence of it, we were shocked when it turned out the SEC was. What if we think the SEC is and it's not? So, yeah, I would think you need to find a way to match them against, at least match the best of the best against each other. And then that's a little easier way to figure it out.
Well, Andy, we appreciate you joining the program. Check you out on your own podcast. Let everybody know how they can check out the Andy Staples Show.
We're on iTunes, we're on Android, we're on Spotify. Pretty much anywhere you get podcasts, just Google the Andy Staples Show. Don't Google the initials, because if you just Google Ask, some other stuff will come up.
Well, appreciate everybody. Stay safe. Hopefully we'll talk to you soon, and have a good weekend, my man.
Thanks, Shane.
Yep, that's Andy Staples. Join us on the Titan Tomorrow Hotline. At Center State Bank, we put business first. We're the largest community bank in the state of Florida and understand that small businesses need a community business partner that they can rely on. Center State has 5 convenient Alachua County locations to serve you better. Center State Bank, member FDIC. Going to take our first time out of the program. We come back and be joined by Big Cooper Carlisle former offensive lineman, played 13 years in the National Football League. We'll be right back.
Hey Gators, this is Coach Steve Spurrier. PodUp with Matthews in the morning. We'll be right back after this commercial break.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our Gridiron sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Area Rug Masters, your number one choice in Gainesville for all your area rug cleaning services. Meldon Law, where you matter most. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. Our touchdown sponsors are Campus USA Credit Union, Celebration Point Town Center, The Digital Mortgage Guy, Adams Ribs, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Center State Bank, Gator Bait Media, Davis Gainesville Chevrolet, Miapa Latin Cafe, Gators Dockside, Okido America Martial Arts and After School, Doreen Wiebe Realtor, Caldwell Banker MM Parish, Radware, Style Cuts, Wrap Spot, Ironwood Golf Course, TB Financial, Chris Doring Mortgage, Meadowbrook Golf Course, Darshakow Insurance, Pomodoro Cafe, MB Listings, Big Mills Cheesesteaks, Cornerstone Financial Group, McDonald's of Gainesville, My IT Master, 84 Lumber, and Gainesville Neon and Signs. If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, you can visit our website, podupwithshane.com, and click the Advertise button or call Freddie at 352-284-3733. Again, thank you for all the great businesses that support the show. Please remember, if you like what we are doing here, thank our sponsors and support the businesses that support us.
Hey Gators and sports fans, get all your Gator talk, news, analysis, and opinions on the PodUp with Matthews in the Morning podcast. Find us on your favorite podcast platform or watch us on Facebook Live between 8 a.m. and 9 a.m. every weekday. PodUp, because we are Gator fans. So say it's great to be a Florida Gator.
Welcome back to a Monday edition of PodUp with Matthews in the morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Celebration points where the Gators come to celebrate with premium brands like Bass Pro Shop, Starbucks, Regal Cinemas, and coming soon, the HBC's new restaurant, Spurrier's Gridiron Grill and Visor's Rooftop Bar. We will see you at Celebration Point. I want to thank Andy Staples from The Athletic joining us. Now we're going to go back to the Titan MR hotline. We're joined by former Gator offensive lineman Cooper Carlisle. Good morning, Coop. How are you?
Morning, guys. Thanks for having me.
Well, Coop, let's do this first. You're a Mississippi guy like myself. You grew up in Macomb, Mississippi. You chose to come to the University of Florida, but you probably caught a lot of grief not going to Ole Miss. What other schools did you think about going to?
Yeah, Ole Miss, both my parents went to Ole Miss, but Ole Miss was going on probation. That was kind of the Billy Brewer probation era. So it wasn't that kind of made that decision easier. I think my last three schools that came down to Florida, Texas, and Alabama.
Well, those are pretty good ones.
Yeah, I was fortunate to have somebody think I could play a little bit.
Well, what made you choose to be a Mighty Gator?
I liked the brand of football they were playing. And I really wanted to play in the SEC. I liked Texas a lot, and I had some family ties. My uncle played at Texas, and I liked it out there. But I really did. I grew up, watching the SEC, and wanting to play in that conference, and then also just the way Florida was playing. They were playing up and down, thanks to you and, a few people after you, but playing up and down the field fast, playing, kind of aggressive offensive style of football. And it's fun to watch and fun to play for.
So, Coop, correct me if I'm wrong, were you a true freshman in 96 or a redshirt freshman on the 96 national championship team?
I was a redshirt.
Okay, I couldn't remember.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about the linemen that were on that national championship team, the offensive linemen.
Oh gosh, so my class had, I think there were 7 or 8 of us in my class. And then Donnie Young was still there and Jeff Mitchell was still there, both very good players. Zach Pillar and Mo Collins were both a year older than that whole crew that came in with me, which was me, Corey Yarbrough, Cheston Blackshear, Ryan Kalick, Scott Bryan, and Pat Browning. Pat had not redshirted, so he was actually a year older than us on the field at that point. But it was a good line. I mean, Jeff and Donnie both had some injuries that year, and they were probably our best players, but kind of both battled injuries for the majority of that year, at least on and off, as far as I remember. But it was a good line, a talented line, a lot of kind of, like any college, when guys go down, you're typically putting a little bit younger players in there, and that's kind of why we all ended up playing, or a lot of us younger guys ended up playing.
Coop, we got a text here on the Titan More text line. It comes from Jim. Jim wants to know, who was the most difficult defensive lineman you had to face while playing for the Florida Gators?
When I was a freshman, my redshirt freshman year, we went to Tallahassee, and they had the ridiculously good line, and Peter Boulware was over me that game, and he was definitely the best player I played against in college. And it was a long day for me. I was whatever I was, 19 years old, and he was about to make a lot of money in just a couple weeks or months after that. So poor Danny, I got poor Danny hit quite a bit that game.
Did you turn around and gave him the old lookout block? Look out, Danny! Look out!
I guess. I mean, I was trying, but he was a good player. Ironically enough, probably, I don't know, 7 years later, I gave up a sack to him in the NFL, which was, I couldn't, he was my nemesis. I couldn't get rid of the guy.
Talk a little bit about what it was like to play for Jimmy Ray Stevens.
He was a good offensive line coach. And as you know, here, everything revolves around how Coach Spurrier is going to call, and, how he wants to, everything kind of revolves around the pass. We had good running games, really because we had good players and we were able to throw the ball. So they couldn't bring another guy down the box, or if they did, that usually it was usually tough on them. So, but I thought Coach Stevens was a good offensive line coach. He had he had played, I think, several positions, and then maybe bounced around the NFL for a little bit. But he knew his stuff, and like I said, it's not necessarily the most offensive line friendly offense to be in, but I think he did a great job with taking all that into consideration.
Who do you think? Obviously you played with a lot of good offensive linemen in your career here. Even when you're redshirt, you got to watch some, and I know you've watched a lot of college football in the Gators. Who do you think in the time that you've been a Gator and after that you've been watching is the best offensive lineman you've seen come through here? Besides yourself.
Ooh, I don't know. I'm not in the running. I think both the Pounceys are really, really good players. I mean, there's no secret there, but they do a lot of good stuff. They're, of course, I don't watch film, like I used to when I was playing against them, or common opponents. But just having watched them, they're both very good. And I don't know that anybody beat, and I don't know which of the two is better, to be honest. For whatever reason, I watched the guy from the Steelers a little bit more because we had more common opponents. But he's both those twins are really, really good players.
Coop, we all have games in our career that stand out in our mind. Is there one that stands out in your mind that, you just totally dominated, whether it was the opponent, the guy rushing the passer, what game stands out the most in your mind in your career that you played in here at Florida?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I guess you've had good and bad games every way, and offensive lineman, I guess kind of like corner or quarterback, you can have a really good game going, but if you give up one sack, it can ruin a game. If you can, same as you, if you have a good game and then throw a pick that's a bonehead pick, it goes from a good game to a terrible game pretty quickly. But I mean, I don't know. I think I had some pretty good games against Tennessee over the years for whatever reason. And then nothing really stands out as far as one particular game, where I felt better than the rest of them, I guess.
Well, is there one game that, I mean, we have games where not just individual performance, I'm talking about as a team that you're like, man, we should have never lost that game. If we don't lose that game, we win the SEC, or maybe we go on. There had to be one game in your career that stands out, right?
Oh, well, of course, that game at Tennessee, I think we had 7 turnovers and lost on a missed field goal there at the end. So that one certainly sticks out. Ended up losing to Georgia that year too, which we had a chance. She had a chance to win that game as well. But that game at Tennessee, whatever, where everybody remembers them storming the field after we missed the kick. But that one certainly, I think you look at anytime you have 7 turnovers and barely lose the football game, kind of feel like you gave that one away.
No doubt. At Chris Doring Mortgage, they do mortgage lending right, helping home buyers throughout Gainesville and North Central Florida. Call Chris Doring Mortgage today at 352-244-0840. Coop, you get drafted by the Denver Broncos and Mike Shanahan. Obviously, a lot of people, know Shanahan coached here at Florida back in the day. What was it like playing for Shanahan?
I thought I have a lot of respect for Coach Shanahan. I think he's a very good football coach, runs a good organization. Broncos in general are a very good organization, but I liked his style of play calling. I liked the zone running offense and then kind of the play action off of that. I enjoyed a lot different than what I'd come from here at Florida. So I enjoyed it. And I think he's a very, very good offensive mind and a good coach.
Well, we got another text here on the Titan Mar text line. It comes from Larry. Larry wants to know, Cooper, what all-star games after college did you play in?
I played in the East-West Shrine game, and I think Coach Spurrier was, the head coach. He was definitely on staff. He and Saban and I think Butch Jones were our three main coaches. So I played in the East-West out in, I don't know where it is. If they I think they still have it, but it's not in California anymore. But it used to be played at the Stanford Cardinal Stadium.
Who were your quarterbacks on that team?
So Doug Johnson was one, and then Tom Brady. Tom Brady was on the opposite team. So who else was? I remember Doug, and then Brady was on Brady was on our team. Brady was on our team.
He was on the East.
Yeah, he was. It was Doug and Tom Brady, and then I don't remember who the Western quarterbacks were then.
Was Tom Brady any good in the game?
Yeah, I mean, he was. He was definitely even back then. I don't remember his stats or anything in the game. It's been a while, but even back then, you do kind of remember that his leadership was, even in practice, was pretty. It kind of stood out even before he was obviously what he is now.
Talk a little bit about, as you mentioned, you love playing for the Broncos and Shanahan. A lot of people may not know this, Coop. You caught a touchdown pass for the Denver Broncos.
I did. Someone actually brought that up to me not too long ago. I did. We were at San Diego, and we had a package where I would check in. That you have to report to go to be the eligible tight end if you're not in the correct number. So I had to do that, and it was about a 6-yard little tight end dump pass, kind of fake the run and then slip out there. And Jake Plummer threw it to me, and I had I'd certainly never scored a touchdown. I never touched a ball in a game other than maybe having to snap it once or twice. But I had no idea you could keep a football in the NFL, so I didn't. But week or two later, Jake Plummer gotten the ball for me and gotten it painted up for me, so I still have it.
Did you spike it?
No, I kind of got bombarded by my offensive line guys that were jumping on me and kind of going crazy because none of us really get to score.
So let me ask you this. Did you catch it with your hands or with your body?
Well, I think I caught it with my hands. I don't really care as long as I caught it.
I agree with that.
But yeah, I mean, I certainly tried to catch it with my hands, and we didn't. Thank goodness I didn't have enough time. It was kind of a quick hit and play. I didn't want a floater when I'm wide open, to drop it or anything like that. So it worked out.
Well, I'm curious now. How you may only have one less touchdown catch in the National Football League than Doring.
I don't know I don't know how many he had. He had a few in there.
He caught his first career touchdown pass from me, and then he may have caught one other. Heck, y'all may be tied for you. You should look into that, and because that could bother him.
Oh, that would not sit well with him. But I will ask him. I don't know how many he has. I don't know how many Travis has either. I don't know any of the stats on those guys.
So then you played 13 years with two teams, both from the AFC West. You go out to the Oakland Raiders as well. First of all, let me back up to the Broncos. Was Kyle Shanahan on the staff when you were out there?
He was not. Kyle was around. He was
still
Kyle
playing,
was
right? College ball.
Yeah, he was in college ball. And he would always come to. Yeah, he went to Texas, and he would always come to our training camps before his college training camp started.
That's right.
And even then, I used to say, "Man, what are you doing?" But I guess he knew what he wanted to be, and I think Kyle does a great job now, and such a good play caller. But yeah, he was around a lot, and we're not that far in age, so we'd hang out here and there.
All right, so you go to the Raiders. Lane Kiffin was your head coach out there. Talk a little bit about Lane. He was so young being a head coach in the National Football League. Did he have an issue being in charge of some of the guys that were older than him?
I don't know if that was it. He just, he was young, and Lane by nature is pretty dang brash, as you've seen over the years. So I don't know if he had an issue necessarily with the players, him being not much older than some of us. I think more of his issues happened with Al Davis and kind of going back and forth there and then butting heads. I think that was more of the issues that he dealt with, not as much with the players. Maybe some other coaches on the staff, they butted heads too, but not as much with the players.
We're speaking with Cooper Carlisle, former Gator lineman, 13-year NFL vet on the Titan MRI hotline. Coop, tell the story about Al Davis, about when they were going to draft you.
So they when Lane got there, they kind of wanted to run a little bit more of a zone offense, and obviously I'd played
not draft.
Yeah,
sign you as a free agent.
Right. So they were thinking about going kind of to a more of a zone running style system, and I had just come out of 7 years of it, in Denver, who's kind of put that style or zone scheme on the map. At least ran it better than anybody else, in my opinion. But so they were decided that, and I was obviously a pretty decent fit for that. So they go there, and Al was always big on measurables and size, and obviously I was not 6'8", 350, which is kind of more the guy he liked. So we go. I ended up going on a visit there, and I think I signed on that day. No big deal. Kind of this pretty standard visit. Go through your medical and meet with coaches and all that, and didn't think much of it. So got it worked out, and then I'm heading to the airport, and the guy driving me to the airport gets a call, and it was Mr. Davis, and he said, "Can you bring me back?" So I go back, and Tom Cable, our new offensive line coach, goes up there, and he tells me this later, but we go and we're talking, and he was unbelievably sharp as far as, what he knew, and he obviously had seen so much football over the years. But anyway, so we're talking about all that, and then right before I leave, he goes, "Let me see your hands." So I stuck my hands out, didn't think anything of it. He goes, all right. And he looked at Kay, was like, "All right, you like him, huh?" He's like, "Yeah, I like him, Mr. Davis." So anyway, we leave, and, months later or whatever, Cable tells me that he calls him after, was like, picked up the phone. He was like, he didn't say a word. He just goes, "Did you see how little his hands were?" And then hung up on Cable. That was the whole conversation.
Oh, that's great. I love that. Talk a little bit about you had Jamarcus Russell as your quarterback, right? Took a bunch of sacks.
Yeah, I had a lot of quarterbacks. Jamarcus was one of them. Yeah, I mean, I don't know that Jamarcus dealt with being that high of a pick that well, and just had just didn't turn out how the Raiders thought he would. So maybe not an ideal situation for anybody at the time.
So, Coop, after you played a long time in the NFL. You've come back to Gainesville, outside of Gainesville. Your family lives here. You've helped coach. We've coached high school ball together. You got any plans in the future? Do you ever want to be a coach or just hang out with the kids and the wife?
I don't know. I enjoyed coaching high school quite a bit. I don't know. I certainly wouldn't rule it out if it was the right time with what my kids are doing, and then the right fit for coaching. But I do enjoy it, so I would not rule it out.
Talk a little bit about the last 2 years, what Dan Mullen kind of turned our program around, winning 21 games, 2 major bowl wins in his first 2 years. What you've seen from offensive line play, I know it hasn't been great because we haven't been a great running team, but that's going to take time. And John Hevesy kind of has a pretty good track record of putting big linemen in the NFL. Just talk a little bit about what you think Mullen and his staff have done since they've taken over.
Oh, I think he's done an unbelievable job. I think he is a excellent play caller. I think he's excellent at attacking defenses, kind of finding their weaker points and attacking that. I think that's huge strength of any play caller, and I think he does that as good as anybody. As far as the offensive linemen, they'll play better. I think I don't think they had a ton of depth, and then they got banged with a few injuries, and then it kind of snowballed. But I think they'll play better. I think they'll run the ball better. I think they'll do a lot of things a lot better. They do protect well at times, which is easier said than done. But back to Dan and his staff, I think they've really have the thing, Florida going in the right direction, obviously, and I think just from what I like to watch, I think a lot of it's, there's a lot of facets, recruiting and all that. But I think as far as play calling, it's certainly a lot more fun to watch than in previous years.
Coop, you got a lot of hobbies. One of them is you're a big time hunter. Let all our listeners know some of the great hunting trips that you've been on. You've been to Alaska. What'd you go? Alaska. What'd you shoot last time? A big moose?
A moose, yeah. I do enjoy hunting, and that was.
How much did that moose weigh?
Oh, well, you can't really weigh them because you're out in the middle of the field, but probably
That's true.
Maybe
that's true.
16 or 1,800 pounds. They're big animals. Big animals. A lot of meat. But yeah, that was a good trip. A buddy of mine that I played with at the Broncos and the Raiders, actually, 2 of us went out there and had a good trip.
So what's next? What's the next hunting trip for Cooper? What are you looking for, or hunting for, I should say?
I don't have one. With all the recent COVID and traveling restrictions and all that, I don't have one planned. Nothing on the books here anytime soon.
And just be hunting here in the state of Florida, huh? Once deer season opens up.
Yeah, that's the plan.
So, Coop, we were both fortunate to play for the HBC, and you're one of those guys that remembers a lot of stuff, not as much as Bates, but you got a funny Coach Spurrier story for us?
Yeah, I don't know. I think I don't want to wear this one out, but it's kind of one of them that I go to. We had a guy. I think I told this recently, but maybe hopefully it wasn't to you. But anyway, we had a guy, Bobby Sablehouse, who's a highly touted quarterback and great guy, but it just didn't work out here, and probably maybe wasn't quite as good as the experts thought. But I remember we were in practice and he was running. I mean, this was an offensive period, but he was running, I don't know, third string or so. But we were in there and he threw a terrible ball just to, skipped a little curl or out route or something that shouldn't have been a real hard throw. So Spurs stops practice and calls him over there, calls all the offensive guys over there and asks Bobby, do you think that throw was carelessness, laziness, or lack of talent? So, pretty tough question. Bobby didn't know really how to answer, so just kind of moved on. But I always thought that was.
He didn't answer at all.
No. I think he may have said carelessness. He figured that was the lesser of the three evils. But
I've never heard that story. I like that one.
Oh, really? Yeah,
all right.
Yeah.
So, what are your thoughts? We're going to play college football this year?
I'm cautiously optimistic, to say the least. I think we're going to give it a shot. I mean, fingers crossed that we're able to. I just don't know if it's gonna. It all depends on how tolerant we are of. People are going to get sick. I just don't think that's gonna be realistic that no one's going to get this virus. But hopefully, if it does, it's small outbreaks, and we're able to keep on going. But I would say I'm cautiously optimistic at this point.
Are you surprised that a lot of NFL guys are opting out for the season? Does that surprise you?
It does surprise me, honestly. I was talking to a buddy of mine that played a long time that he was surprised too. I mean, I would think that other than the obvious, where it's just playing and you can't avoid that, but you are outside, but you're in guys' faces and stuff. But I think the protocols in the NFL locker rooms would be, far more stringent than anywhere else, just from what I've seen and what I've read and talked to a few people, that I think you're in the facility, you're as safe as you can be. So it is a little bit surprising for the guys that I did read, where one of the guys his wife had several miscarriages and he was nervous about that, which I get. But, just to each his own, but it is shocking to me.
Yeah. Well, Coop, we appreciate you joining the program on this Monday. You and your family stay safe, and we'll talk to you soon, buddy.
All right. Thanks for having me. Y'all take care.
All right. That's Cooper Carlisle. Join us on the Titan Lamar hotline. We're going to take our final time out of the program. When we come back, we're going to wrap this show up. You're watching and listening to PodUp with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. We'll be right back.
Hey Gators, this is Coach Steve Spurrier. PodUp with Matthews in the Morning. We'll be right back after this commercial break.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our gridiron sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Area Rug Masters, your number one choice in Gainesville for all your area rug cleaning services. Meldon Law, where you matter most. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. Our touchdown sponsors are Campus USA Credit Union, Celebration Point Town Center, The Digital Mortgage Guy, Adams Ribs, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Center State Bank, Gator Bait Media, Davis Gainesville Chevrolet, Miapa Latin Cafe, Gators Dockside, Okido America Martial Arts and After School, Doreen Wiebe Realtor, Caldwell Banker MM Parish, Radware, Style Cuts, Wrap Spot, Ironwood Golf Course, TB Financial, Chris Doring Mortgage, Meadowbrook Golf Course, Darshakow Insurance, Pomodoro Cafe, MB Listings, Big Mills Cheesesteaks, Cornerstone Financial Group, McDonald's of Gainesville, My IT Master, 84 Lumber, and Gainesville Neon and Signs. If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, you can visit our website, podupwithshane.com, and click the Advertise button or call Freddie at 352-284-3733. Again, thank you for all the great businesses that support the show. Please remember, if you like what we are doing here, thank our sponsors and support the businesses that support us.
Hey Gators and sports fans, get all your Gator talk, news, analysis, and opinions on the PodUp with Matthews in the Morning podcast. Find us on your favorite podcast platform or watch us on Facebook Live between 8 a.m. and 9 a.m. every weekday. PodUp, because we are Gator fans. So say, it's great to be a Florida Gator.
Welcome back to Monday edition of PodUp with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Really want to thank Andy Staples from The Athletic, former Gator football player, joined us, and my buddy Cooper Carlisle, 13-year NFL player with the Broncos and the Oakland Raiders. This Day in Sports is brought to you by Area Rug Masters. Don't fight your area rugs. Take them to Area Rug Masters. With their convenient curbside services, you will never need to go anywhere else. Call them at 352-448-5999. This Day in Sports, back in 1979, Sam Snead, at age 67 years old, sets the record for the oldest player to make the cut in a major championship. It was the PGA Championship at Oakland Hills at 67 years old. That's amazing. That's your This Day in Sports, brought to you by our good friends at Area Rug Masters. We want to thank some of our new sponsors that have come on board. McDonald's of Gainesville. Make sure you visit McDonald's. Peachland Dentistry, Gator Nation's #1 choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte and surrounding areas. Visit them at peachlanddental.com. Make sure you tune in tomorrow, folks. We got a great show lined up. Obviously, it's Tuesday. It's Buddy Martin from the Buddy Martin Show. But we're going to have Gator Great and Miami Dolphin great Nat Moore join the program. Wednesday, we have Lauren Hager, former Gator softball player. Thursday, we're going to have the head ball coach himself, Coach Steve Spurrier, talking about the state of college football. We're going to try to sneak in his wife, Jerry Spurrier, on the show that day as well. And then we're going to round out the week with my old high school teammate, Florida State and college football Hall of Famer, Terrell Buckley, who now is an assistant coach for Lane Kiffin up at Ole Miss. Make sure, folks, you follow us on Facebook Live, like us, but definitely follow us. You can also check us out on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts as well. Again, I want to thank my man Cooper Carlisle and Andy Staples for joining the program. But today's show is going to be a wrap brought to you by our good friends at Wrap Spot. Hey, folks, be safe and make sure you tune in, follow us, and all that good stuff. We'll see you tomorrow. Stay safe.
Trying to get the fans fired up. 2nd down and 10. Matthews rolling to his right, in trouble, can't find anyone. Now he throws it for Harrison Houston, who makes the catch. He's in the open field. Harrison to the 20. They're not going to catch him. Touchdown, Gators.
Hey Gators and sports fans, get all your Gator talk, news, analysis, and opinions on the PodUp with Matthews in the Morning podcast. Find us on your favorite podcast platform or watch us on Facebook Live between 8 a.m. and 9 a.m. every weekday. PodUp, because we are Gator fans. So say it's great to be a Florida Gator.